What's up, chicken butts? Do we like my chicken calendar? It's very on brand. It's very on brand. I know that I say this about like every single project slash YouTube video that I do, but I've been wanting to make this for a very long time, which is true. I even made a little sketch of what I'm going to be making today. That is a balaclava sweater. Not just any sweater, a balaclava sweater. A sweater with a balaclava attached to it. Full transparency, I am not the creator of this concept. I've seen it done before, but it just looks so freaking fun and so freaking cute. And it's like a bodysuit, but for like your upper half. Yes, yes, all things yes. I'm probably gonna have to section off this video into two parts. One part sweater, next part balaclava, so sorry for any inconveniences. We gotta do what we gotta do, okay? But I'll link everything and do all the things, so it'll be easy for all of you to find, okay? And we will get into the sweater portion of this video. Here are the ingredients to this pattern. So I bought two huge skeins of yarn, one white and one green, and they're both a size 4 in weight. A 5mm crochet hook for the majority of the project, and optionally I used a 5.5mm crochet hook just for the bottom trim of the sweater. I used 4 stitch markers and a tapestry needle if you're into that. So you may see me crocheting with a 4.5mm crochet hook, but don't pay attention to that. That was a mistake. So I'm using my favorite technique for making sweaters, and that is making them from top to bottom. Here's the thing, you want to chain as many that will comfortably fit around your head, but you don't want it to be too small because you want to, you know, get your head through. So just make sure it fits comfortably around your head. So for me, I had to chain 76. Keep in mind though, I have a rather large head. So if you have a smaller head than me or even a bigger head than me, just make sure it fits whatever beautiful head shape you have. Now that we've done all of our chains, I'm going to slip stitch in the very first chain, so that way we have a circle. So for this, you just want to make sure that your chain isn't all twisted around, because then when you're crocheting, everything is going to be twisted and then you're going to have to redo it and then you're going to cry a little bit. So just make sure that your chains aren't all twisted when we do our slip stitch to make a little circle for our head hole. Now I'm just making the slip stitch to connect both ends of my chains. Okay, so to set up for the next row, I'm chaining 3 and I'm going to double crochet all around the row. So when I'm back at the beginning, I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain that I made and chain 3. This is how I'm going to start every single row basically. So now I'm turning my work, and for row 2, I'm double crocheting all around again, and for row 3, I'm doing the exact same thing. So in this shot, it does look like I've crocheted 6 rows, but that was also my mistake. So just a reminder, we want to crochet 3 rows, and row 4 is setting up the shoulders. So to know where I place my stitch markers, I fold my work in half, and from the edge of the piece, I'll count 5 stitches over and place my first stitch marker there. And I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Then I'll flip the piece around and count 10 stitches from my stitch marker. So this section that we're creating on either side of the piece is going to be 10 stitches long, and that's including the stitch markers. Also, don't add your seam in that shoulder section that we've just marked out with the stitch markers. I usually put my seam like just outside like the stitch marker sections. And then I'll just open up the project really quick just to make sure the stitch markers are nicely across from each other and everything looks, you know, nice and neat and how I want it to look. All right, so now actually diving into row 4, I'll double crochet just like normal, but when I get to a stitch marker, I'll double crochet in that space, chain 1, then I'll put my stitch marker in that chain 1, then I'll double crochet again in that same space. And I'm going to do that every time I come across a stitch marker. And I'm going to repeat these shoulder increases till I reach row 14. Also, don't forget to turn your work. Okay, so here's what this is looking like. I wanted a nice long shoulder because I want this to be like slouchy. So now I'm just gonna add on my white yarn and we're gonna make the armholes. So much fun. So I'm fastening off my green yarn, and now it's time to switch colors. So for row 15, I'm attaching my white yarn. So I make a little slip knot, insert my hook into the previous row's slip stitch. Then I'll slip stitch on the white yarn and chain 3, and then I'll double crochet until I get to my first stitch marker. So when I get to my first stitch marker, I'll double crochet in that chain 1 space that the stitch marker was in, and then I'm going to chain 25. Then I'll go over to the next stitch marker over, and I'll double crochet into the space that the stitch marker was in. Make sure for your chain 25 that it's not getting twisted when you double crochet and attach it to the next stitch marker over. And basically this is just creating the space for our arms, and it gives us a nice space to make our sleeves. And then I'll do the exact same thing on the other side of the piece, double crocheting into the stitch marker, chaining 25, and double crocheting into the next stitch marker over. So after you're done crocheting row 15, I suggest to try the project on at this point so that way you can make sure everything fits and feels comfortable. So for row 16, I'm double crocheting all around, and when I get to that chain 25, I'm just gonna double crochet into that as well, like, you know, business as usual. And now I'm really starting to make the body of the sweater. So I'm going to keep double crocheting for an additional 23 rows, and every 8 rows I'm switching colors so that I'll have nice juicy stripes. Once I'm done with the body of the piece, I'm just gonna do like a little trim at the bottom of the sweater. I don't want the trim to be super tight. Again, we want a nice slouchy, loosey-goosey sweater. So I'm actually going to size up my hook. I'm gonna use a 5.5 millimeter hook for the trim, and I'm gonna do 1 row of double crochet. And then to make this a ribbed trim, I'm going to start doing front post and back post double crochets. So I'm not gonna get like super in depth, but basically how you do this is instead of crocheting in like the top V's of the double crochet, I'm going to be double crocheting into the posts of the double crochet. So for the back post double crochet, I'm gonna double crochet like I regularly would, but instead of putting my hook in that like upper V that we usually crochet into, I will be double crocheting underneath the post. So I'm putting my hook underneath the post of the double crochet. Are you with me? And then for the front post double crochet, again, I'm crocheting like usual. I'll be kind of like going in from the back, putting my hook in front of that post, and then picking up my yarn and double crocheting like usual. I'm literally only doing this for like 2 more rows. Like, it's not the most important thing in the world. You can do whatever you want. And I'll be doing the front post, back post double crochet stitch just for 2 more rows. So in total, I'm just doing a little trim that's only 3 rows long. Again, 1 row of double crochet and then 2 rows of the front post, back post double crochet. So now that I'm done crocheting the body of the sweater, I'm gonna move on to the sleeves. So I'll be attaching my yarn in those like armholes that we created before, and I'll attach my yarn in a spot like where my armpit is gonna go, so the seam is not like front and center. So again, I'm just gonna attach my yarn, chain 3, and just start crocheting around that, you know, arm circle that I've created. So I'm gonna start off with my green yarn. I'm gonna do 2 rows of my green yarn just because I think that will make the stripes look extra slouchy, and that's what we want. We want slouch. And again, I'm attaching the rows together exactly how I have been, with a slip stitch and a chain 3 to start the next row. So after the 2 rows of green yarn, I'm doing 8 rows of white, 8 rows of green, 8 rows of white again, and 2 rows of green, and then I'll do the cuff. Was that a lot? I'll write it down. After our final 2 rows of green yarn, and now I'm going to do the wrist cuffs, which I want to be like pretty loose. Again, what's the word of the day? Slouch. We want it to be slouchy, cozy, comfy. So I don't want my wrist cuffs super tight for like a big balloon effect. Not the vibe. So for my wrist cuffs, I am chaining 9, and I'm single crocheting down that chain. When I get to the main piece, I kind of messed up here. You're supposed to slip stitch 3 times into the next 3 stitches, but I totally forgot how to do this correctly for some reason. So what I did by accident is I would just skip over 2 stitches and only slip stitch in the 3rd space over. Then I would back loop only single crochet up the row, chain 1, back loop only single crochet down the row, and I continued to do this incorrectly correctly for most of the cuff, but then I finally remembered how to actually do this technique properly, but I already liked how the cuff was looking, so didn't go back to fix anything, and I did the exact same thing on the other cuff, mistakes and all. And then when you're done crocheting the cuff, you know, you just seam up both sides. And yeah, that's the sweater. It's time to do a little try on. I usually like to end my videos outside, but the wind is giving eardrum damage, so we're back inside. Okay, let's talk. Let's gossip a little bit. So when I finished crocheting the sweater, I was so in love with the fit of this sweater that I was like, should I even attach the balaclava? Like, is that gonna ruin the sweater? Would it be more wearable sans balaclava? But then I made this little balaclava and it's like really cute. It's like a cute little hood situation. It's like cozy on your neck. This is like maximum cozy. Yes, it's, yeah, I think this is actually one of the nicest things I've ever made. It looks very like professional. Yeah, it just looks really good. I just did a great job. I'm just amazing. If you would like to add the balaclava for maximum coziness, that video will be up next week / linked here when it's up. Anyway, if you want to see more content from me, make sure to follow me on Instagram, like this video, subscribe. You know the drill, okay? And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Bye.